Hey everyone, it's Kat here. It's been a little while since I've recorded a video. I've actually been on a big 1 month holiday in Bali, which was super soul nourishing and inspiring to be there. And I didn't really feel called to do any videos while I was there, even though I thought that I would. But basically since then, I've been experiencing psychic attack. And so I thought it was a good opportunity to come on and instead of sharing a channeling, just share a little bit about my experience with psychic attack and share with you what I know about it. And also give you some tips if you are someone that's experiencing psychic attack, something that might help you in, I guess, resolving that for you. So the story really begins I guess 10 or 12 years ago when I was in a very deep meditation practice. I was meditating an hour, sometimes up to 2 hours a day. And it was through these meditations that I experienced my first channeling experience. So in my first channeling experience, of course, I'm going to create another video to tell you about my channeling experience, but in that first channeling experience, I channeled energy. I started channeling movements, I guess, movements through my head, letters being spelled out with my nose, similar to, the Abraham Hicks experience. Felt compelled to get up and move and dance. And so it was a really beautiful experience. I was really present to that experience. And really, just allowing, that energy to move through my body. It felt very pure, very, high vibrational, I guess. But soon after that first experience, I kind of, went back to my day, and there was a part of me that thought, what was that? Was I possessed in that moment? What is going on? Is it a ghost? All of the ghost stories of my past kind of was going through my mind, basically. And there was certainly a part of me that then became quite afraid of what I had experienced. So I would jump on Google, try to understand what had happened to me, and kind of, I think it was like one article that I had read, which talked about connecting with lower energies, and that's when I became really afraid. It was not knowing what had happened to me, as well as reading this article. It kind of compounded the fear for me, to the point that I was not viewing my experience in channeling as a good one. I actually became quite afraid of it. So what ensued after that was that I was really quite intrigued about the channeling experience, and I was trying to learn more, but I was also going down a rabbit hole of learning about these attachments or these psychic attacks. And what it is, the psychic attack, from what I know, from what I've understood it, is that there are indeed entities, lower realm, energies who basically dwell on the earth plane. And they are, for example, people who have passed over and they haven't made it into the light. And because they haven't made it back into the light, they actually don't have access to light source or an energy source. And so how they get energy is by attaching themselves to humans, and feeding off them, and in particular feeding off their fear. So this was creating a little bit of a snowball effect for me, because I was afraid of what was happening, and reading more and creating more fear, which was potentially feeding this attachment that I had. Okay, I think I probably went a little bit too far ahead. I was scared, but over the next few nights, what happened was I started to experience nightmares. And so this is something else which is attributed to psychic attacks. So I have always had nightmares, in my experience in my life, but not many, just the odd few growing up. But suddenly I was experiencing them very frequently, like every few nights I would get them. And they were a little bit different to the nightmares that I'd previously had in my life, in my experience. These nightmares, I would wake up with fear reverberating throughout my body. I could really feel the fear in my body itself. And so, yeah, just, reading about it, learning about it, I understood that I was now experiencing a psychic attack. So I basically stopped meditating, because I did find that in moments of quiet, in moments of meditation, that energy was able to access me, and take control of my experience a little bit, and the frequency of the nightmares would increase. And so yeah, I pretty quickly learned to not meditate anymore. I wanted to avoid this experience that I was really afraid of, and so I stopped meditating altogether and did so for the next 10 years. The other physical experiences that I had during this period was that I could feel an energy, or like a pressure or something, like here on my neck, on this side of my neck, in fact, on the left. And occasionally I could feel something trying to move my eyeballs. Like I wasn't the one that was controlling it. There was just something moving my eyes. And these are the things that I attribute to the psychic attack. That's how I've experienced it. So over the course of the next few years, I would speak to people about it, and I'd read about it. And, everyone says they're an unwanted visitor. You just tell them to go, they're not welcome in the house. They just need to be told. They're just like, mischievous, and they need to know that you are the boss and you set the boundary. So I would attempt to do these things, but I was always doing it from a place of fear. There was another part of me, while I was saying, you're not welcome here, please leave, I was also afraid of it. And so every time I attempted to do so, there was fear. It was like on a foundation of fear, right? So it was not from a place of holding boundaries, of being firm. It was coming from a place of fear, and I believe that this actually just further fueled the entity, basically, to have an even stronger hold on me. And so, yeah, I just felt really trapped. I didn't know how to deal with it. And the only thing that I could think of is to just basically avoid the meditation, not give it access to me, because every time I did that, then, the frequency of the attacks would basically increase. So for 10 years, I basically, tried my best to avoid it. But it was still there. It was still persistent. It was consistent as well. Sometimes I'd go months without experiencing a nightmare, and then other times it would be a lot more frequent. And so I really did not know how to deal with it. Every time I tried, it actually just made it worse. And so, I stopped trying, and I just tried my best to avoid it. It was when I moved back to Australia. I'd been living in London for a few years. I moved back to Australia, and actually the psychic attacks escalated. It escalated to a point where I wasn't just getting a nightmare. I also felt being touched. So I could feel, a hand grabbing my arm or like touching me. And that's when I knew that I really had to do something about it, because the fear was now way overwhelming. I couldn't live with this experience of something touching me in my sleep. And so I scoured the internet, and I actually found someone, true angel, an amazing light worker, who was able to help me. She had experience in this. This is, what she was really marketing herself to do to support people with. And so I want to share the experience that I had with her. Basically, over 10 weeks, I met up with her, and she's very connected. She is certainly, channeling, like working with spirit side, working with like light beings to support and guide me through this experience. But to begin with, we really spent at least half, if not more, of the 10 sessions that we had working on building my sense of self, working on releasing fears, of bringing, unconscious beliefs to the surface, fears of why I wasn't good enough, and also, developing a sense of my gifts, like knowing what I was good at, what I was here for. And so in doing so, I was really quite surprised at this approach. I didn't really understand what we were doing, but what I now understand it to be, like looking back, is that we were absolutely raising my vibration, giving me a strong sense of self, of who I am. And that's important, right? Not coming from a place of fear, but coming from a place of, I know who I am, I know what I'm here to do. It was not like life coaching or anything like that. It was just slowly and surely chipping away at, bringing things to the surface that weren't serving me, and also, bolstering me in understanding, the truth of my power. So once that foundation had been laid, the next steps was to basically get rid of this attachment. And how we did that was really quite specifically was to build this assertiveness within me, which I previously, I would say that I don't and didn't have. And we did that by picturing something that made me really angry. And she gave me an example, which is, what makes her really angry is child trafficking, child abuse, effectively. And I couldn't think of one for myself, and so I borrowed her example, and I used that to, just develop a feeling, I guess, develop a sense of anger and anger within. And once I had harnessed that feeling, used that feeling to instruct the energy, the entity, the attachment to go, to leave. And if I remember correctly, we put it in a box. Like it was a ceremonial activity, put it in a box, and basically, I can't even remember what happened after that. But it worked, and basically I was finally freed from this attachment. Now, I will say that it did linger for a few weeks. When I got in touch with her and asked for more guidance, she just asked me to burn incense, to open the doors, to continue some of the practices of cultivating, a strong sense of self. And it was enough, basically. So, for the first time after 10 years, I was freed, and I was able to go back to my meditation practice. And back in my meditation practice was where I then was able to develop and build my ability to channel, and eventually to verbally channel the beings that I channel today. And so, a massive milestone for me was being able to rid myself of the attachment so that I could safely meditate. So a few things here, I guess. One thing that I learned in that experience is what happened was that I had, in opening my channel, I'd opened the door to being able to connect with spirit side, but the door was now open, and that all types of energies and spirits could now connect with me. And that's what happened. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, everyone's got attachments, like maybe you're just not perceiving it. And that's not really the case in my experience. I believe that what happened was when I opened the door to channeling, that I was also allowing myself to be accessed by these other energies and entities as well. It's like I could see them and now they could see me as well, right? The other thing that I want to say at this point is I channeled very spontaneously. I wasn't welcoming the experience. I wasn't inviting it in. I didn't know what was happening. It just kind of happened out of nowhere. And so I was not very trained. Wasn't trained to know how to set up, protections, if you want to call it that, or, just I didn't know how to connect with spirit. And so I just allowed anything to connect through me, and I inadvertently allowed these lower energies to connect through me at that time as well. And so this time around, with the attachment that I'm currently experiencing, I very quickly engaged someone else to help me. But what's critically different about this time is I'm not afraid. And I'm not afraid because I know that, number one, they can't really hurt me. They're not really hurting me. It's highly inconveniencing. When you wake up from a nightmare, that's not a pleasant feeling to experience. But I'm not afraid, as in I don't think that anything can really happen to me other than, a little bit of a scare when I wake up from these nightmares. So that has certainly changed, and that's changed because of my channeling as well. So when I've now that I'm connecting to higher beings, what I am recognizing is that I am strengthening my vibration, my frequency, my sense of self, and that is a pretty strong protection as well. And so I feel quite protected because I am connected, and because I'm continually working on my vibration. And so it's just basically an inconvenience and something that I have to deal with. And I would say also potentially some fears that I still have, which need to be dealt with, which need to be brought to the surface so that, I can basically, just let it go, I guess. Not really sure what that is, but certainly, these attachments, they need some level of fear to attach onto. So certainly something for me to look at, but through support and help. So I'm very close to being able to rid myself of this attachment this time around. It's just been a short 1 or 2 month experience for me. And I'll be back, I guess, to share more if I know more or have a different experience. But it's been a much different experience this time, and I certainly have not allowed it to fester and to consume me and, build fear within me. So I want to now just share some tips that I have for anyone who is experiencing psychic attack. Certainly can be a scary experience if you don't know, if you've never, experienced it before and you don't know what to expect and what it is. And so the first thing I would say is before doing any sort of meditation or channeling practice is to make sure you go through a grounding exercise. So you do that by imagining roots growing from your feet, and basically penetrating the ground into the core, all the way down to the core of Mother Earth, and feeling really rooted, supported, grounded, and allowing the energy of Mother Earth to rise back up through those roots and in through your body, and allow that energy to keep you feeling grounded. That's one thing that really has helped me as I've ventured back into channeling, is that feeling of groundedness has really, protected me. I can really feel that I'm not as touchable by energies that are unwanted, or these lower energies, when I'm in a very grounded state. Always, before you connect, and even, if you're just meditating, make sure you make a statement that you are only connecting with beings of unconditional love and of light beings, and light beings only. So this is important to make that proclamation before you do any channeling. It's just really setting the boundary, and those boundaries are, to be kept, basically. And so that's really important that you do that as well. The third thing is something that I learned is when you connect with any sort of entity and you ask them, are you from the light? They actually have to answer truthfully. And so there have certainly been times when I've connected and I'm like, this does not feel very high, of high frequency. And I'll say, are you from the light? And on the odd occasion, I've had no's. And if that is the case, you just cut the connection instantly. Don't allow that energy, that entity to have any access to you. You just shut it down and say, you will not have access to me. That's important because through my experience, what I understood is that, I was just allowing anything to connect through me. I wasn't discerning. I continued to allow that thing to access me, and that's what created a stronger attachment. It was able to basically grow its attachment to me. The other piece of advice that I have is to get help. Certainly that's what's helped me the most, is to get help. Someone who knows what they're doing. I certainly can't see, I don't have any, connection with spirit other than the channelings that I do. So I can't perceive them, basically, is what I'm saying. But there are people who can perceive them, can talk to them, can ask them what they want, can instruct them to leave, and they will work with you to do so. So if you can get help to do it, do so. In my experience, it's been the most helpful thing. And the other thing I would say is, the first time I experienced it, the reason why it got as bad as it did is because, number one, I was afraid, and number two, I was trying to avoid that fear. And in doing so, I created that fear to grow, right? It's like a repressed fear, but in doing the repression, it just continues to, to grow and grow, and it's feeding off that fear. As the saying goes, what you resist persists, and that's exactly what was happening with me. I didn't want the fear, so I was trying to get rid of it. I was trying to do whatever I could to get rid of it. Trying to find out from people, but I was basically trying to run away from the fear, and in doing so, it just actually, multiplied or magnified for me. And so what I'm trying to say here is, now that I'm experiencing it the second time around, I'm not trying to fix the fear or fix the attachment. I'm actually trying to build a stronger sense of self. So the grounding is really helpful. Eating foods which are highly nutrient dense, is also helpful in building a strong body, building a strong mind. So just being very, I guess, aware of my thoughts, my feelings, cultivating a really strong, sense of where my thoughts are going, and bringing my thoughts back to a centered place wherever I can, being present, dealing with any health issues that you might have. So all of these things are just continuing to support a strong mind, body, and spirit. And so that has also been very helpful, has been helpful for me, rather than trying to, deal with the thing, deal with the attachment, try to get rid of the attachment, because actually that made the experience worse for me the first time round. So yes, by no means am I an expert in this. I'm only sharing my experience and my tips from what I have experienced. I hope this was helpful to you if you are listening and tuning into this topic. And yeah, what I will say finally is I don't think that the channeling and psychic attacks are related. They're actually two different things. You can absolutely connect in with higher beings and receive very high loving guidance from these beings, and be experiencing psychic attacks at the same time. It's not that the channeling allowed the attachment to happen. I would say that the attachment was happening and the channeling was happening, and the attachment or the psychic attack was just something that had to be dealt with. It certainly didn't help me with channeling, but it's not the channeling which caused the psychic attack. I believe that there was a fear within me that had to be dealt with, and that was what was causing the psychic attack. And so you can safely channel, is the point I'm trying to say here. It will not welcome in psychic attacks. If you are experiencing psychic attacks, it's very likely that you just have some fear, something unresolved, trauma or a health issue even, that needs to be dealt with. And when it's dealt with, then you're much more, able to operate at a higher frequency and only allow in more higher energies as well. So yes, that is my experience, and I hope that was useful to you. If it was useful to you, feel free to drop me a comment in the comment section below. Excuse the fly.